Peace, everyone. Welcome to Black VegFest Breakout. Sorry about that. Listen, we still trying to get things properly done right. We're still trying to get it done properly. I'm gonna talk about some mixed martial arts. I'm gonna talk about boxing, kickboxing. Anybody interested? Self-defense. Yes, we want to have that conversation right now. Especially, we don't know what's going on. We don't know what's going to happen. So I want to have that conversation about self-defense. I'm gonna go into a little bit about my background. We're gonna try to maintain it. So everything I'm doing right now is so experimental, just in terms of doing the live. All right. But I want to get that consistent. Y'all can help out with that. We definitely need some stronger service. We definitely need more strength, bandwidth. So definitely, purchase something from Black Veg Fest. Peace, family. Michael should be coming on later on. Um, we'll try to make that work. See how that is possible. Trying to see if you could do interviews on this platform. I'm using Lula right now, all right, to do YouTube, Instagram, and also Twitter all at the same time. You know, for real. Yes, Naja. Naja, peace, Naja. How you doing? Naja, if you're not familiar, is one of the organizers of Vegan Soul Fest, along with Brenda Sanders. Peace to Naja Wright. Okay. She also runs Land of Kush with her husband, Greg, in Baltimore. All right. So definitely support if you can, especially if you're in Baltimore. Hey, so it's working. Right. We're going to put our hands together right now. Thank you, Victorious. Appreciate it. So my background, and the first off, let me just go into the reasoning, right, for having this discussion about self-defense. So we're having this discussion about self-defense in terms of right now, just because, like, I mean, what do you wait and just hear people talk backwards about COVID-19, talk about go up on the state office building with high-powered rifles. It's even if that's the world you want to be in, and that's fine. Can you live in that world? So we're going to talk about, can you live in that particular world, right? And what it actually takes. I think you're going to have this mindset of self-defense, and you got to know your people. You got to know your resources, all around you. You're going to have to be able to defend yourself. It's just a great skill to actually have. It's a great skill to have, to understand and learn self-defense. So I got into the fight game, like many other people, and it was boxing. It was boxing, a little bit of kickboxing first, actually, learning Jeet Kune Do. So if you're familiar with Jeet Kune Do, it's the art of intercepting fists. And I would say intercepting hands are some of the actual movements, or not. I'm like, I would say this is Bruce Lee's. And Bruce Lee said he wished he didn't actually have a name for it and that's, because it was so experimental, but it's also based on yourself. It's also based on the body. Like, and Bruce Lee was saying that a lot. And people didn't start really saying that until decades later, whereas you actually do well or you do awful based on you. Some of my fights, I'm gonna be honest with you and transparent. I didn't have the right practicing discipline sometimes for some of the matches, especially as I got older. So really, really, really was something to think about. So that impacted me. Sometimes it's impacting me, most of the time it impacted me negatively. If I came into the fight game, not totally prepared. So I'm not in those, I didn't get the belt on those days. I didn't get the belt on those days. The days I got the belt was the days that I worked really hard and I was really disciplined to my craft. So I'm going to talk to you about that and why that's incredibly important, just in terms of everything you're doing. In terms of so we talking about survival methods, right? But also self defense and just that type of awareness. So very key. So those are intercepting fists, and that's kind of what Jeet Kune Do was really about, and it was a lot of defensive movements that transfer into fist movements. So if he would block, kicks or block hands, quick with the offense. So countering schemes, but you can find countering schemes in boxing, in Muay Thai, and just about in any particular martial art you can find, all type karate, whatever the case, you're always going to find countering methods. But Jeet Kune Do really focused heavily, or Bruce Lee style was heavily on changing from stand up to the ground, from the ground to the stand up. So very key. So he is the grandfather. So I should start off with that. So he is the grandfather of mixed martial arts, giving people an idea and a concept that you take your style where you think you're going to just use that style on somebody else with a different style. What if your style actually doesn't make any sense to their style? And that's what Bruce Lee was saying. Why am I going to try and kick you? I'm on the floor. I need to use some grappling or some wrestling techniques. That's what he's saying. I'm not going to use kicking techniques. I'm on the floor. If I'm on the floor and we're wrestling, I can't punch and kick you, right? Same thing with you standing up and you're a wrestler. You want to get me to the ground, but what if you can't get me to the ground? You have to have, techniques in terms of knees, in terms of elbows. You have to have a lot of different tools in the tool shed. All right. So, or the toolbox. So I came into the fight game with Jeet Kune Do. Then I started boxing. So I was around 17, which is that's late for a lot of folks. If you're looking to do it professionally, incredibly late. I tell people all the time, people don't listen. I didn't do it professionally. I didn't do it professionally, but people wouldn't do it as amateur, in most cases, because especially with mixed martial arts. There is no weight. There is nothing. That little 6 ounce, gloves that we have on, man, guys are hitting with power. So they're hitting with a whole lot of power. And then you got knees, to the stomach and so on and so forth. So I want to get and have people understand, that a little bit too in terms of professional and in terms of amateur. But I want people to get some concepts of what they can actually do to learn. First off, it's tough for you to learn how to defend yourself online. And what this is actually you need to find somebody who can actually, teach you. And at this particular time, it's difficult now. So what if you don't know, at this time where you are quarantined and you can't actually venture out somewhere else and for a class to learn mixed martial arts? So when I came into it, I went to same place that a lot of folks in Brooklyn went to. I was in Brooklyn, Bed-Stuy Boxing Club. George Washington was my coach. Yeah, that was his name. And so the brother, his elder who passed away, was teaching me, how to keep it neat and throw a jab. And now I remember the first day focusing on throwing jabs, and switching me from southpaw stance, which I just adopted a southpaw stance, even though I was a righty. It don't make too much sense. I'm not gonna go too much into that. but essentially my power was in the back, and so he wanted to switch me to my power was in the front as a southpaw, but he wanted to switch me to orthodox and put it in the back. And that's generally how boxers, a lot of boxing coaches do it. Some boxing coaches will teach you, traditional boxing, even if you are a left-handed fighter. Uh, and that's just because it's hard to be switching back and forth. I'll switch with people when I'm training people to box or kickbox. If you're a left-handed person, I'm not going to treat you as if you were a right-handed person. That's just lazy, you know. Because you do want to have your power in the back. So when he switched me, it was the right thing for him to do, to switch it in the back. But it allowed me to be able to be to fight ambidextrous. I am not ambidextrous outside of fighting. Hugely not ambidextrous. So and I mean, what that takes is to be ambidextrous. Taught me is that being consistent, constantly learning and training, with that same hand and throwing that same jab. So my left hand is now, it's very effective in throwing the punch almost as much as my right. So I came in, under his tutelage, and I had various coaches. My last trainer, brother Prince, who's vegan, it had been to and been in my corner for probably about 10 of my last fights, mixture of kickboxing and mixed martial arts. So getting into this place, the first matches I was having was karate tournaments. So these karate tournaments, during and this is late '90s. This is mid '90s. This is mid '90s, and I'm doing karate tournaments. Not doing exceptionally well because I'm getting disqualified. um, Bruce Lee didn't do tournaments, and the reason why he didn't do tournaments was because that he felt that it really shackled your skill set, utilizing certain methods in tournaments where they had excessive padding or excessive rules. So those rules play don't happen out in the street. So that's the reason why those rules go out the window. Um, so he had a point, but also mixed martial arts, like certain fights, can be created in such a way where it allows you to, really harness all your skill sets, right? And allow you to, fight. And you've seen some of the matches, bloody. People really get hurt, and they get maimed pretty. Folks can get maimed pretty bad. But understand the focus here is to help people with self defense. And but so you have to understand that with the negatives, and just the same thing is if you're learning how to to fire a weapon, you're learning how to use a rifle. Well, you understand that you don't want to shoot yourself. You want to practice basic safety skills, right? You want to have a skill set that basically the platform or the base is safety first. So safety first. So knowing all of the negatives and what can actually happen, hugely important. So that's why I would inform everyone. First off, you don't go into the fight game. It's definitely painful. Fractures, everywhere. Um, I fractured most of my fingers. I fractured, most of my toes. I definitely fractured, my foot in fighting. The other foot or the other time, would be outside of fighting. Fractured, both my ribs on both sides. So a lot of different, issues. And let me tell you something though. Being vegan has helped my recovery incredibly, especially when I at first went vegan before even going into mixed martial arts, and it's helped my recovery in such an incredible way. and allow me to repair my ribs. I remember fighting an opponent in MMA, and I'm on the couch and I'm laying down and just like I'm in so much pain because I'm like, when is this thing gonna heal? I'm thinking it's gonna take months. It only took a month. But anyway, my opponent, from last night, calls me, and I mean, well, he texts me. He texts me. He was like, "Hey, bro, what'd you do to my neck?" And I'm like, bro, my ribs right now. So, like, what? And I mean, I think he only hit me like, you know, um, but he's on top with like two, three times. And that's really all you need somebody because so the idea of self defense is that when you train, when you learn, and you understand strength and conditioning, um, whole different concept. So we go into self defense, and my segue into that is that hey, the main thing you need to do right now, because no one can train you online in terms of how to effectively throw a punch or maneuver out of the way, out of a kick or a grappling move, anything like that. I can't teach any of that online. I could only enhance what if you already been learning that. But I usually don't do that. What I will do is strength and conditioning. So if you find a strength and conditioning coach, that's what you need to be focusing on because that hardens the body so we could take more, you could take more abuse, essentially. And you need that out in the world where most people are not fighters, right? But they also don't follow rules, right? They don't follow rules of play. And so different things. So the main thing in self-defense when you're learning it is just being self-aware. Being self-aware, where you are and how you're feeling is super important, right? And then also aware of your surroundings, aware of your surroundings and consequences and how you get into that. And so I tell folks on all the time, online, you got to be careful. You know who you talking to. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a fighter, but fighters really are. We don't get a kick out of kicking somebody's behind who is never trained, who's not a fighter. We actually look down on fighters when they do that. So that's why you don't see in the paper all the time. As much. Their fighters will, whip your behind real quick. You know, something. But you're not finding that in papers because there's a certain type of discipline that we have, and also we're not going to get any. I'm not going to get anything out of fighting some other folks, and folks are just gentlemen, and gentle ladies. I think in most cases in the fight game, but I would first say strength training, be self aware and aware of your surroundings. That's your first understanding of self defense. You go into a space, know what kind of space you're going in, knowing exactly where their exits are. Um, but outside of that, you really just need to, get your push ups, have your push ups in, create and build your strength, your conditioning for you to be able to go for the long haul, but also build up your muscle, your endurance. I know that's tough with, you being in home. I'm training people inside their home. Listen, you just need a little square. You just need your space. You need a maybe 2 feet around you, circumference around you, of space. Do jumping jacks, push-ups, so on and so forth. There's a lot of different skills in there. Through boxing. Boxing is one of the things. Here's the interesting thing about boxing. If you're learning how to box or you want to learn how to box, it's an easy thing to learn. It's easy to learn. It is not easy to be good. I never said that. Never going to say that. It is very hard to be good, compared to anyone. But you can learn. It's a jab. It's a straight right, okay, or called a cross, okay. That left hand or that front hand is that jab. that hand in the back. Is that right? You're welcome. You're welcome, Victorious. And then you got that left hook, right hook, uppercut. Okay. And that's pretty much it. And then, so those are your basic punches. Now, people are like, what other punches? There's also your overhand. There's a lot of punches that also have no names for them, and they throw, and Pacquiao, I'm probably throwing all of them, you know, every single one you could think of. And so they come in various different spaces, and a lot of times it's, fighters are aiming for the temple. Folks are aiming for the temple. It can short your circuit, on your chin, can change your equilibrium very quickly. Hitting your chin goes here, and but it's all conditioning to be able to stay and stand up and the test of time in any type of match. But I would say just being prepared, for things. And we're talking about, during this time of being quarantined and COVID-19 during under COVID-19, right? And some people are bugging out. Some people are bugging out. Some people want to open up, and some folks have weapons out here. So another form of self defense, I will say, because I really don't want to get too much in that, because I want to try to get Michael, on. But I think the platform that I'm using, Michael, is going to be possibly tough, for me to be able to use. So and I really don't want to mess around with things, too much, but it would have been great, to have Michael on. So Michael is one of the organizers. Michael Barber is one of the organizers with Black VegFest, and would definitely love to have him, on. And we may have to have Brother Michael on next time. I'm super new at this. I'm glad it's on. Listen, I'm a fighter. We're gonna try anything. Whatever you talking about, I'm ready to do it. We can try that. That way, it might not. You're not totally sure. Well, we'll see what happens. We'll see if it'll work. And that's the kind of the set the idea that you have to have in the fight game. And let me tell you, the fight game, nobody cares, and everybody always wants to come back in when they retire. I stopped fighting in 2017. I'm 41. I'll be 42 in October. We're now all Bernard Hopkins. Bernard Hopkins fought till he was like 50, and you see what happened when he fought at 50. You see what happened with Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali, was he still in his 30s? I think he was just in his late 30s, or early, what I mean, or early 40s, right? Thank you, Kelly. Appreciate that. Thank you. I'm trying, right? So, so that's just important for folks to know. Um, but one of the things I really, really want to get to folks is this is my self defense right here. We're planting. I'm planting right here, and the rest of the plants I have are outside. So I'm making wheatgrass, right? I'm growing wheatgrass. I'm growing some wheatgrass, and up until this morning, I was like, "Where's the wheatgrass in here?" I had put a bunch of water in here, and I also sprayed it with some hydrogen peroxide, to give it some air, right, and allow it to grow, and also kill everything in there, you know. That I was just learning hydrogen peroxide. I used to hear about it all the time, but nobody goes into things sometimes. Like why? Like why? Because it kills bacteria. It kills the bacteria. And yes, plants can have bacteria on it. That's really problematic. Keep that in mind. Okay. So that's my self defense. Wheatgrass. And I think another thing was, yes, of course, my brother. Yes, yes, Michael. Hoping to have you on. Great, strong, smart, dedicated brother. You know, so that we need in this movement. I might just talk about Michael a little bit more later on. The preface I'm coming in next time. So weak raz and listen, y'all gotta eat y'all greens. Like greens is on. It should be on top of every single thing. When I was fighting, listen, greens, greens, greens. That's one of the things. Now I got less disciplined when I got older in the fight game because the body don't move the same way it did, and also the brain. And then you constantly just want to fight. You constantly just want to get in there because it's the way. It's the space and place where you're most comfortable. And I think the fight game is just really, really just comfortable, and that's why people come back, and that's why Muhammad Ali did not want to go. That's why Bernard Hopkins stayed until he's 50. That's why it goes back and forth whether Floyd Mayweather would go in or not, and people change their mind in retirement. Manny Pacquiao has done that quite a bit. Um, and this that that's why it's it's like it's simple. Somebody is going to fight you, and it's like we're not just talking. You know what I mean? It's simple. It's quick. Where it's like something out in the street. Like, well, I don't know. There's not a date. I can be blindsided. In school at work and then get bullied. So I didn't volunteer for this. This is nuts. You know what I'm saying? Like the fight game is just like, are you certain you're okay? The doctors will come in. You know what I'm saying? Every single fight, you got to have your paperwork. Like we didn't just show up and be like, hey, we want to fight. You know what I'm saying? Like that's not how it works. So you have to go through an entire system of safety protocols. You come in there with with your paperwork. You make sure you got your shots. You know what I mean? They test HIV, they do blood tests. You get it. You got a urine test. You go to your doctor, and then you come and you see their doctors on the day of. The day of. You make sure you fight folks at your weight. If somebody, but still, if somebody was to say that fighting is ignorant, I mean, listen, hey, possible, very much so. However, it teach a lot, and remember this sister was saying everybody has anxiety. She teaching this field, and I didn't realize until my partner was talking about discusses her anxiety, and people have different levels of anxiety, and I have my own anxiety as well. And what I do know is that once you get in there, you don't have any anxiety. You know what I'm saying? It goes away. You're gonna have anxiety probably, leading up to it. If it's far out, no, you just hyped. A month out, a week out, you hype. A couple days out, a day out, you might start feeling anxious. You are not aware of the outcome, you're gonna be anxious. And that's just the reality, of the situation. And so that's every single fighter. You know what I mean? Are we afraid? Are fighters afraid? If you're afraid, you don't do it. You don't do it unless you're forced into it. You know what I'm saying? That's how I look at, fear. You definitely, I would say you could be worried. Um, you know, I would say that you could be worried, in the fight game, but there's so many different things that are working. I was just learning, Matt Hughes, who's an MMA fighter in UFC, and he takes CBD for his anxiety. And I've noticed that, and when I saw him, I started remembering back years when he was fighting, years ago, going back 10 years, or more, and I was like, he was yeah, I can tell, I can see that, he seemed very anxious. he seemed very anxious, you know. But it doesn't stop your skills. It actually allows you to kind of manage your stress, and I think that might be one of the ways why we want to get back into the fight game. um, it's for various different reasons as well. It's fun. We look at that as fun. It's competition, and it's I used to say for years, it's the only place where I compete. I don't compete anything else. If I'm putting out a book, you putting out a book, let's put out a book together. You know what I mean? Or I'll promote your book, you can promote my book, or we just putting out books, what I'm saying? How's my book compete with your book when some people have libraries, of books, and some people, whole families. Like, we don't have to compete about that. We don't have to compete about a lot. There's a lot of things that we compete about that we shouldn't compete about, like learning, training, educating people, even work. And it becomes the employers having us compete. So I definitely understand that. I can totally see that. But I don't think it's necessary for to compete every space in your life. And that's just being key. And probably one of the most important things I can say in terms of self defense is just not really trying to compete, not really trying to fight or engage with somebody violently. Why is it necessary? Why would it be necessary? It should only be necessary when you actually need support. You need help. Let me make sure I charge this in. you know so it's my brother is saying the IG has shut down, and I think that was the Instagram, right? And then but I see Periscope is on, folks. So folks that come on from Twitter, right? It seems to be like Twitter and Periscope are together. I never knew that. Which is super interesting. Super interesting. Um, my brother is telling me that the IG Live has shut down. Are folks still off on Instagram? Anybody on Instagram? Still there? Um, so it's super interesting. What I'm gonna do is I want to shut it down for a second and then play it back, and then we'll just start it up again. You know.